Hey everyone, Cell here. Recently, as in a couple weeks ago, I ended up running a successful no-hit Sanctum run and decided to get around to recording this video on my experience doing so. It won't be like a full guide or anything like that, but I do have some tips and tricks for people that are thinking about attempting this themselves, especially in solo self-found. So we'll start here at the back half. Well, not half even. Don't even know what I'm saying at this point. Start here with the last room, and then probably bounce around a bit, see the various rooms and bosses and such. A bit of a showcase as to how the run as a whole went. So the build uh, went with a 0 HP, effectively. Stormbrand Ascendant, and Ascendant is definitely not the optimal ascendancy here. However, I leveled one because I was originally going to try an Ascendant Spark build, and quickly realized I did not have the capacity to make that feel good in a solo self-found environment. So I went with Stormbrand instead. Had a lot of my very first practice run with Stormbrand, and my first full practice run overall, because I didn't really finish one with Spark, went very well, was a success. And at the level of HP I have, everything kills you in one shot anyways. So I was confident enough that I went ahead and did a real run and failed it, and then I did another one and failed it. And so this was my third and final run, and I ended up setting up a rule for myself that I didn't want to attempt my last run until I had 2 full successful runs, uh, practice runs, that is, back to back, with at least one of them being on the day that I wanted to do the actual run. Because it was my last one and it's insanely rare, I was already lucky enough to get 3 of them. So I didn't want to blow my potentially last chance of the league to get it. So anyways, I ended up practicing, changed a few things that I'll touch on later. But here you'll see I'm using like a bunch of enkindled flasks with increased effect. And I brought a body armor with the Eldritch Flask Charges Over Time mod on it, just to make sure I could use flasks against every boss. Also brought a stack of regrets in case I needed to do any respecking shenanigans. So, for example, the ZHP situation. Like I said, everything kills me in one shot. So my resolve doesn't matter at all. What this also means is that when you can occasionally get a major boon that brings you back with a percentage of your resolve. And these do work for a no-hit run, but they don't bring you back from the dead. So those essentially would have been invalidated for me. And if I had gotten one, what I would have done is respec to the point that I could have survived a hit in terms of HP. And I'll stop pausing here just so we can see the fight here. Excuse me. The basically main flow is put down your brands, make sure your Divine Blessing is up, and use flasks appropriately so everything's, full damage. Gonna go back here a little bit and see that I actually made a mistake that could have potentially cost me the run. So put down my brands after I activate my Divine Blessing. Then I hesitate for a second, and then I dash in with my flask active. Because I'm using Swift brand, the brands are expired. So at this point, right around here, I'm like, why is the boss not dead? In my practice runs, it would have been dead by the time I had walked that far around. Oh, because my brand's expired. So I wasn't really paying attention to boss moves at this time. So if she had done something other than this, or if I was standing even slightly differently than I was, that could have potentially gone very wrong. Fortunately, it didn't. So as you can see, boss dies very quickly once brains are actually down. A couple seconds. I think I'm at like something in the range of 15 mil boss DPS. Pinnacle DPS, that is. I don't know if she actually gets frozen. Can try to catch that here or not. I don't remember what the frame by frame button is. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to bother trying to check. Also, I don't know if you can. Maybe it's just visually you have to tell whether or not they're frozen. So I don't know if she actually is, but either way, that 15, 16 mil DPS figure is assuming they are not frozen. If they are frozen, then obviously 100% extra cold is fire because I'm using Heat Shiver. Here's a bit of a shot of the gear. Annihilating Light, Vol's Protector, I think the body armor is called. 2 Call of the Brotherhood, Heat Shiver, and the rest rares for various things. Good Eldritch Implicits on the gloves. I think I had Cold Exposure and Unnerve, so those are good multipliers there. I do have an Ulnatal's Vow, which I think is even more rare than I originally thought, but it is about 20, I think it's 29% more damage. I think I have Hypothermia in there. Easily replace that with a +1 or +2 amulet. You don't need all the damage that I have in this build. I did forget to mention that final boss fight was with no damage boons, so I didn't have more damage or less monster life. But I did have one hindrance in the form of 25% increased monster life. So baseline, that was less damage than I normally deal. Also leveraging being low life for 30% more damage and righteous fire for another multiplier. So pretty much just have to cap your fire res or get it as high as you can, get some decent regen, and if you're using Eldritch Battery, make sure to balance your energy shield and life recovery. So I'm not using a level 20 discipline here because I found that pushed me over the edge of sustainability and I was not able to keep Righteous Fire on. So yeah, that's pretty much it as far as the gear. Apart from what I'd say the main 4 pieces are, which are the rings, the helmet, and the Annihilating Light, just use whatever gets you more damage, really. And even the rings aren't that necessarily in conjunction with the helmet. If you can find other things that do it for you, then go for those instead. I would highly recommend this build to anyone trying for a no-hit run because it just had solid mechanics and good enough damage, more than good enough damage, I should say, to take down everything you needed to. As for the bulk of the run, the first 31 rooms, the hardest floor, in my opinion, is floor 3. Mostly because of the boss. And the actual rooms themselves, probably floor 2. Floor 2, pretty much everything is a pain. Even the easy, so to speak, trap room is pretty dangerous because there is a guard that spawns near the ledge you want to take a shortcut to. So I actually tended to avoid that room originally. And part of the reason I failed some of my practice runs and 2 of my actual runs, well, 1 of my actual runs because I only failed 2 of them, was the lack of range on Stormbrand compared to something like Spark. You know, Spark, you just flood the room with projectiles, they bounce, they hit stuff you don't even know exists yet. You don't have that luxury with brands. So instead, you got to try to stack extreme brand attachment range. And there's a cluster jewel that gives you brand attachment range over time, and I'm pausing here because this is a good example. It gives you 20% increased attachment range every second up to 100%. So it takes 5 seconds to get to that point. So I also have, I think 110, or no, I have 100 brand attachment range naturally, 100%, before that cluster notable, which will be in the POB that I'll link down below. And I didn't realize this, but you can get attachment range on gloves as well, and maybe amulets. Don't know for sure on that last one though, but basically however much you can get, I would highly recommend, because that's going to make the whole Sanctum easier. And the rooms themselves are the hardest part once you have enough damage. Once you have enough damage, the bosses are trivial to the point that the main room for mistakes is in running to the bosses. So anyways, you can see here, I put that brand down, hover over here. Brand is right here. If anything's in range, it should be attaching. There aren't any guards moving. You can tell because there's no like light down here or anything like that. The guards have a light radius that you should be able to see if you're familiar. So wait here, and then after a couple seconds of the brand being down, it attaches. So that's the increased range it's gaining from the cluster notable. And you see I kind of just, stutter step in here, and you can tell whether a brand is attached to something in the upper left when the indicator is filled. It'll be like like that, like a light blue instead of a hollow circle. So you can go ahead and do that. There's a spot here. Yep, I just put that brand in a fire, and it might attach to something here. I always tried to get this, and I think one time I successfully did it, but for the most part, it didn't really work, and I did have to go over. But at this point, it's my final attempt at this, and just take it as slow as you need to, No reason to rush it. Rushing it is just going to potentially cost you the run and way more time than you're going to save by going a little bit faster. Here's an example of a skull room on floor 2. This is actually, I'd consider the least sketchy floor 2 room. And actually, hang on, I'm realizing how horrible some of this was when I watch it back. So look at this. That was very close to touching that beam. But, in the moment, you're not really thinking about it. And I'd done so many of these runs, maybe I just felt like the skull was going to stop spitting the beam. But anyways, should be the last room before the boss here. Floor 2 boss is probably the second sketchiest. Behind the third floor boss, in my opinion, just because as soon as you move, the bosses are active. But you should be running all of the first 31 rooms in tier 8 maps, and then the last room in a tier 16 map. So that reduces the damage requirements and increases the speed at which you kill the bosses by a significant amount. So you can see here, you do actually have to run the maps yourself. You can't, or on a particular character, you can't do maps on another character and then pick up the Sanctum, because you can do that for the first 9 rooms. But after that, if either of your characters has started a Sanctum run, if you switch maps to or from that character, it will disappear, the Sanctum entry zone. So, yeah. 0 HP, no defenses of any kind. Something looks at me funny, I die, and I kept getting annoyed by that, so I did Divine Blessing Grace just to be able to have the occasional mess up and evade some attacks and whatnot. And then I had a cast on Death Portal. So, yeah. Take whatever measures you need to keep your sanity on this one. So here is the end of floor 3. Got pretty lucky on this one. I had a lot of Halls of Worship, which is just a quick teleport up. On one of my failed runs, I actually had 7 Halls of Worship, which is amazing. And then I died to the boss. So I made sure to practice the boss a little more after that and actually pay attention and focus on my movements. So here, in my opinion, the best way to go for this build is to start close to her and walk in a circle around her. So you'll see here, I walk a little bit early, she starts her attack, and then I dash over. The brands, once they're attached, should have enough duration that the boss dies pretty quickly. We can see that again here. And you may have seen me swapping gems in my Stormbrand link as we got back into the Sanctum, or away from it rather. I swapped to faster casting when not doing bosses because Swift Brand will reduce your brain's duration a lot and cause it to not ramp up the attachment range that I was talking about earlier. So that is pretty much it as far as comments I have. Here's a little bit of floor 4 footage. And like I said, I took everything really slow. In my practice, I got used to where all the guards are in rooms like this. Trap room, don't normally have much of a need to kill the guards. You just sprint through everything, take a hit, no big deal, but usually you're just not getting hit. And you'll see I'm waiting here a long time because I got the affliction that they release volatile anomalies. So wherever possible, literally just wait them out. I was not risking going out once they were partially expired because you don't want to be in a situation where it's coming at you and you're like, okay, I'm just going to trigger it or whatever, and you expect it to like meet you in the middle somewhere, and you'll walk through it and keep going and be fine. And then all of a sudden its duration expires, it explodes, and you weren't prepared. So even though it has an animation, you got tripped up a little bit. So again, I'm kind of doing the stutter step thing here, where I'm inching up a little bit, putting my brand down, and repeating if after 5 seconds it doesn't attach to anything. Going for maximum safety here, and now I see that this one's dead. I don't have any audio in this recording because more space is taken up by that, but I was also listening for the explosions. Even off screen, you can hear them go off. So yeah, once I got this close, that's when I actually make a beeline for the door. But yeah, for the most part, the last floor wasn't that bad for me, from what I remember. I managed to avoid any desecrated crypts, which is always the main worry. I was very worried about that on this run since I did have the volatile anomalies. And if it came down to it that I had to pick between like a desecrated crypt or another bad room with a bad affliction, I just probably would have avoided the desecrated crypt still because I do not trust myself to dodge / place brands effectively enough to deal with the guards and the balls and the beams. So yeah, that's about it. Like I said, I'll have a Path of Building link down below for anyone that wants to check out gear and such and maybe compare. If you're thinking about doing this until Self-Found, I would definitely recommend it. I did do this at level 90, so not like super high level character, just for this run. Main thing you're going to gain is damage anyways. Maybe a little bit of speed if you spec that way, but yeah, there just comes a point where you don't really need either of those. And I felt like I was already past that point. So yeah, anyways, hope this was educational, at least entertaining a little bit. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to give it a like, comment, or subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.